So we're going to talk about the law of opposites. The law of opposites. My wife and I last weekend, we took a little trip, a little getaway for her birthday and our anniversary. And while we were there in the hotel room, we watched a program with Bryant Gumbel. Anyone seen his program on HBO, Real Sports or Real something? Is it Real Sports? Real Sports. And on there, he was interviewing someone who was talking about athletics in Norway and how they are rising to the elite status in winning awards and gold medals and performing at a high level in the world arena of sports. And so this guy is going all around the world looking at sports, recreational sports, youth sports, and then all the way up to professional sports. And he said one that has stood out a lot. I mean, whatever they're doing, they are raising up these top-notch athletes. And so this guy, having studied all of them, he said that he asked the people in Norway, what is it that you do? And he said, we do everything opposite of the United States of America. He said, we do everything opposite of the United States of America. And so, that really made me curious. What is the program? My wife and I, we both sat there and watched it. And he said, they do everything opposite of the United States of America. So, and I know some of us would immediately balk at this. Their youth sports, none of them keep score. All the way up to age 12. We're like, some of us are already like, no, how can that possibly work, right? Because we keep score from 4 years old. Matter of fact, 3 years old, we're keeping score, right? So we're keeping score and we're competing. And I think we're in a hyper state of it now. We're in a hyper state of competition now. Meaning that competition is everything to us. Is my child doing better? How my child is doing? And so parents are livid these days in the stands, watching their child compete, and they're upset and they're out of it, and they said we don't even do that. As a matter of fact, it's a federal law against keeping score in games. Not only that, but they also, and I'm not saying that we should do this. I'm just saying that it's working for them, okay? They also do this. Every child can compete if they want to. In other words, they keep their fees for competing so low that if a child wants to, they can compete. It's very affordable to do it. Not only that, but if the child can't do it, they just let them do it anyway. If they can't afford to do it, they just let them do it anyway. So their pool of athletes is bigger than our pool of athletes because everyone gets to compete. So at age 12, they're not burnt out. They are rip running and ready to go because they have done things different than we have done them. We've done it in such a way where we have competed and we've put so much emphasis on the competition and on the individual competing. Are y'all with me? I need your eyes the whole time, okay? You don't have to do it no other time in church, but today you got to look at me the whole time, all right? You can, after today, if you don't want it, that's on you. But today, you get to look at me, all right? So the whole time, they are hyper competitive, and what they have not had is burnout. When the kids get to a point where they can compete, where score does matter, they have a wonderful pool of kids who love the game. And not only that, but they have a large pool of kids to pick from. And then they get serious about it. but the heart of it, they still love the game. They still want to be in it. And so I'm saying that not to make to add an opinion on the way we ought to do it or not. I'm just saying the opposite. They chose to do things the opposite of the United States of America. They chose to take a different route. They chose to not be so hyper competitive and wait. It's not that they're not competitive. They just chose not to do it early in life. They chose not to have these exorbitant fees to play a sport and pay so much money to play at such an early age. They didn't do it that way, yet they're getting the results. And so what we want is results, right? Right? Everything in our system is super competitive. That's why some kids who academically don't do as well as others are deemed not smart. Well, I want you to know God didn't make any junk whatsoever. None of us. I don't care if you're an average student, A, B student, A honor roll student, just barely get along student, you're not junk. And you got to know that. Because the world, because we are in a hyper state of competition, we're constantly thinking about the grade, not only for our sake, but also how are we beating someone else out. Well, that devalues your gift. That devalues what God has made you and what he has put inside of you. So you can't compare yourself with others to determine how successful you will be in life. Because if you do, you're already a failure when you judge yourself by others. So the law of opposites, listen to this. I'm going to read several scriptures to you. Let's start with John chapter 12 and verse 20. Some Greeks who had come to Jerusalem to the Passover celebration paid a visit to Philip, who was from Bethsaida in Galilee. And they said, "Sir, we want to meet Jesus." Philip told Andrew about it, and they went together to ask Jesus. And Jesus replied, "Now the time has come for the Son of Man to enter into his glory. I tell you the truth, unless a kernel of wheat is planted in the soil and dies, it remains alone. But its death will produce many new kernels, a plentiful harvest of new lives. Those who love their life in this world will lose it. Those who care nothing for their life in this world will keep it for eternity. Anyone who wants to serve me must follow me, because my servant must be where I am, and the Father will honor anyone who serves me." Verse 25 is the scripture we want to highlight. It says, "Those who love their life in this world will lose it. And those who care nothing for their life in this world will keep it for eternity." That's the law of opposites. Those who love their lives, it says, will lose their lives. But those who want to keep their lives, that they must hate their lives, or they must, as it says here, nothing in their life in this world will keep it for eternity. For those who care nothing for their life in this world will keep it for eternity. So I want to share several more scriptures with you, and I'm going to give you several points that I want you to take with you today. So, these are our cross references. As whoever finds his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Matthew chapter 16 and verse 25. Mark chapter 8 verse 35 says, "For whoever would save his life would lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." Luke chapter 9 and verse 24 says, "For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will save it." And Luke chapter 14 verse 26 says, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple." So we're talking about the law of opposites. The law of opposites. And the law of opposites says this: In order to get your life, you got to be willing to lose your life. In order to have a life, you've got to be willing to give up a life. That's the law of opposites. Because everything we have been taught and everything that we are taught in this world is to do all that you can to gain your life, to keep your life, to protect your life, to preserve your life, to get all that you can for your life. And God is saying, that's not the way to get your life. Now, we can either side with God or we can side with our thinking. And when we begin to side with our own thinking, we've got to ask ourselves the question, when's the last time any of us in this room at all have hung the stars? When's the last time any of us in this room have put the moon up in the air, up in the sky? When's the last time any of us have caused the galaxies to come into place, the planets to come into place, and not near one of them ever touch one another and crash? When's the last time we've sustained a universe for thousands of years? Thousands of years. When's the last time any of us have been able to keep water and keep resources in the earth forever and ever and ever? When's the last time any of us in this room has been able to cause materials to come up out of the earth that have been a blessing, like gold and silver and what do they have in Wakanda? Vibranium. Just thought I'd throw that in there. Somehow I didn't get it. Vibranium, right? Wakanda, right? The opposites.